Title: My husband and son abandoned me. I erased their memories and left, but they returned 5 years later. Chapter 1: The Final Mission. Elara's hands shook as she gazed at the control panel in front of her. The glowing red lights and flashing alarms signaled the failure of the mission. She had been sent to protect her family, to safeguard them from the hidden threat of their world, but she had failed. The organization had warned her about the dangers, how altering memories could be the only way to secure the safety of those she loved. Clark, her husband, and Ian, their 5-year-old son, were in the next room, unaware of the danger they had just escaped. But their safety came at a cost. The enemy had infiltrated their lives, and now the only way to keep them safe was to erase every trace of her existence from their minds. The system, a sentient AI designed to assist agents like Elara, spoke in its cold, emotionless voice. Host, the mission has failed. Immediate action required. Recommended course: erase your presence from the target's memories. Tears filled Elara's eyes as she realized what this meant. She had no choice but to disappear from their lives forever. She would become a stranger to the 2 people she loved most in the world. Valerie, an ordinary woman placed by the system, would become their new wife and mother. Clark and Ian would never know they had lost Elara. They would think Valerie had always been the one by their side. Proceed, Elara whispered, her voice trembling. Erase their memories of me. Chapter 2: A New Life. 5 years had passed since that fateful day. Elara had built a new life in a quiet town far from the city where Clark and Ian lived. She had remarried a kind man named Jacob, who knew nothing of her past life, and together they had 2 young children, Aiden and Lily. Elara had buried her pain deep within her, focusing on her new family and the happiness they brought her. Her art studio, where she worked as a painter, had become her sanctuary. Each stroke of the brush was a way to distance herself from the haunting memories of her old life. She had convinced herself that Clark and Ian were better off, that they were living a peaceful life with Valerie, completely unaware of the truth. But deep down, she could never truly forget. Every time she looked at Aiden, she saw a glimpse of Ian in his eyes. Every time she heard Lily laugh, she thought of the way Ian used to giggle when she tickled him. The past was never really gone, it lingered in the quiet moments of her new life. One morning, as Elara stood in front of a canvas, lost in thought, the familiar chime of the system echoed in her mind, startling her. It had been years since the system had communicated with her, and her heart raced as she heard the voice she had hoped never to hear again. Host, the original target has gone mad. He has regained his memory and is about to find you with your son. Elara's blood ran cold. She dropped her paintbrush, her hands trembling. No, this couldn't be happening. Clark had regained his memory? How was that possible? And Ian, her sweet, innocent boy, what would he remember? Before she could fully process the system's warning, she heard a knock at the studio door. Chapter 3: Confrontation. Turning around slowly, Elara saw Clark and Ian standing in the doorway, their faces shadowed by a mixture of anger and confusion. Clark's eyes were filled with a fury she had never seen before, while Ian, now 10 years old and almost as tall as his father, looked at her with wide, searching eyes. Elara, Clark said, his voice low and filled with accusation. Why did you leave us? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had prepared herself for this moment in countless nightmares, but now that it was here, she was paralyzed by fear and guilt. Ian took a step forward, his young face a blend of hurt and confusion. Why does everyone say that woman, Valerie, is our mother? Why don't I remember you? Elara's heart shattered at the sight of her son, the boy she had loved so fiercely and sacrificed everything for. She had erased his memories to protect him, but now, standing in front of him, she realized the depth of the pain her actions had caused. I had no choice, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I did it to protect you both. You were in danger, and the only way to keep you safe was to erase your memories of me. Clark clenched his fists, his jaw tight. You thought taking yourself out of our lives was the answer. You left us with a stranger. You erased everything we had together, Elara. I thought it was the only way, she cried. You don't know what was at stake. The enemies, the mission. I did it for you, for Ian. I had to protect you. Ian's face twisted in anguish. But we're here now. We remember you. Why did you have to make us forget? Chapter 4, The Forgotten Years. As the confrontation continued, Elara explained the details of the mission, the danger they had been in, and why she had felt it was necessary to erase their memories. Clark listened, but the anger in his eyes remained. How could she have made such a decision without them? Without giving them a choice? Clark had spent the past 5 years believing Valerie was his wife, that she had always been the one he loved. But now, the memories of Elara were flooding back, overwhelming him. The love they had shared, the life they had built, it had all been erased by her hand. Ian, too, struggled to process the truth. His memories of Elara were hazy, fragmented, but they were there, buried deep in his mind. He remembered her laughter, her touch, the way she used to tuck him in at night. And now, he couldn't understand why she had left him behind. "You had no right," Clark finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "You had no right to take yourself out of our lives like that." Elara's shoulders sagged under the weight of his words. "I know," she whispered. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd be safer without me. But I was wrong." Chapter 5, The Return of Memories. As the days passed, Clark and Ian struggled to reconcile their old memories of Elara with the life they had lived with Valerie. The system, which had been designed to keep them safe, had failed. And now, the life they had once known was unraveling. Elara, too, was torn between the family she had left behind and the new life she had built. Jacob, her husband, and their 2 children were her world now, but the guilt of her past weighed heavily on her heart. Clark's feelings for Elara resurfaced, raw and unresolved. He had loved her once, deeply, and those feelings had never truly faded. But could they ever go back to the way things were? Ian, too, wanted to reconnect with his mother, the woman he had been torn away from. But the confusion of having 2 mothers weighed heavily on his young mind. Chapter 6, A New Choice. In the end, Elara was faced with an impossible choice. She could not erase the past or undo the pain she had caused, but she had to decide whether to embrace the family she had left behind or continue with the new life she had built. Clark, despite his anger, still loved her. But could they rebuild what had been lost? Could they create a new future together, with the memories of the past haunting them? Ian, desperate for his mother's love, wanted her back in his life. But what did that mean for the life she had created with Jacob and their children? Epilogue. Moving forward. In the end, Elara made the hardest decision of all. She chose to confront her past and rebuild the connections she had severed, but she would not abandon her new family either. It would be a delicate balance, one fraught with challenges, but Elara was determined to make it work. Her journey was far from over, but one thing was clear: love, in all its forms, could not be erased so easily. The end.